Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of This Day in Hockey. Coming at you rather infrequently these days, but nonetheless here we are. Because specifically today wanted to jump on anytime I get an opportunity to link the day or to say something publicly about the late, great Gordie Howe. I'll take the opportunity, and today is the 4-year anniversary of his passing. And yet here we are still that the NHL has done nothing to honor Gordie Howe. There was a public announcement made shortly after his passing with a lot of pomp and pageantry and floated out by league executives Gary Bettman and Bill Daly that something would be done in the near future to honor arguably the greatest of all time. You could make that case. You certainly could say that a combination of longevity and excellence, his career was unparalleled. I think that's safe to say. And I always quote the one stat, top 5 in scoring for 20 consecutive years. Are you kidding me? I mean, you could make a case he was the greatest athlete in the history of the world when you talk about his physicality, his durability, and the level of excellence with which he played. And his physicality, including toughness. I mean, he arguably was maybe at one point the best fighter in the NHL. He certainly was a guy that took on all comers when need be, especially early in his career. And, I'll digress for a second in the sense of where I want to go with how I continue to maintain, I think would be the easiest solution to honor Gordie. But it should be pointed out that a lot of us, myself included, when we do talk about him, and many of us saw him play in the WHA, and if not in the WHA, you probably caught some of that last season in Hartford when he was a 51 turning 52-year-old grandfather, scoring 14 goals, playing in the NHL, 15 goals and 79-80 for the Hartford Whalers. That wasn't the Gordie Howe anywhere near his prime. What he was doing there was crazy and insane and incomparable, but that wasn't the guy in his prime that won 4 straight Art Rosses in the early 50s. I know he won 2 after, but the Gordie Howe in his prime, you're talking the 20-year-old Gordie to, say, 30, 33, 34-year-old Gordie. The decade of the 50s when he was battling Rocket Richard, the early to mid part of the 1960s as the new kids on the block were coming in, your Bobby Hulls and your Frank Mahaliches and your Dave Keons, and you still had Jean Beliveau and you had Stan Mikita coming in and Andy Bathgates and those are just the forwards, let alone D and goaltender, but sort of his peer group up front. He still was taking them on and in many cases besting them, either offensively or certainly had no peer physically. All that to say, his records and his resume stand alone and can stand for themselves. What the league has done here by procrastinating is you're throwing shade, to use a modern term, on a guy who did everything. I mean, you could make the case he, along with Jean Beliveau, are two of, if not the greatest ambassadors, maybe put Bobby Hull in the mix in league history. And everything he did, everything he gave back to the league, yes, it wasn't in the sense of diversity that they've hired Willie O'Ree to do, but Gordie Howe, everywhere he went and everything he did, even under the auspices of trying to generate revenue through his wife Colleen, managing his business affairs after he was literally raped by the Red Wings for a decade and change, anyway, maybe more financially, as many of the great players were at that time. He gave back continually to the league, if nothing else, just by his name and his sheer presence at events, and by being alive and being viable and able enough to go around to participate in enough league events. He gave back enough, let alone everything he did on the ice, for 32 professional years. To not have anything done for him at this point yet is absolutely brutal. Now, I maintain, and I've posted this publicly, and I always, it always makes me chuckle at the angst and the hand-wringing I get in response of people who don't want to change the name of a trophy because of a tradition. Because, oh no, we can't change the Hart Trophy. I mean, the Hart Trophy. Can't change the name, tradition. There isn't one person watching this right now who knows the history of the Hart Trophy. You don't know the name's already changed. You don't know the family history. You don't know when it started, probably. Some of you may know that, but you don't know the origin, the continuation, and everything about it. Not the least of which, there's not one single family member left alive in the family, and there hasn't been for decades. And every single thing, every name, every win of the Hart Trophy going back to 1924, when the name changed in 1960, could remain forever in posterity in the Hockey Hall of Fame, where the trophy resides most of the time anyway. I don't get the angst as to why the NHL couldn't take the Hart Memorial Trophy, retire it permanently, every single winner previously logged forever on the trophies and on the bands and on the previous trophy in the Hockey Hall of Fame, just like they do with the bands that are removed from the trophy, the Stanley Cup, and rename the league's most valuable player award the Gordie Howe Memorial Trophy. And it begins anew. He won it 6 times. Yes, Wayne won it more. But they gave the Rocket Richard, became a trophy for the highest scoring goal scorer in each season in the NHL. And he was surpassed. He was surpassed in career goals. He only had one 50-goal season. And the other players even that came along shortly after him, like Bobby Hull, who led the league in goals way more than Rocket Richard did. But they honored him for being the first to accomplish, to be really the first real noted goal scorer. He was the first real noted goal scorer. What about Ted Lindsay? And that award was even changed. That award started in 1971 as the Lester B. Pearson Award, named after a Prime Minister of Canada. Do you get any more vaunted than that? A Prime Minister of Canada. That award was named after. Mr. Pearson was still alive. And subsequently, a number of years ago, the NHL Players Association deemed that name, as much as it was still revered and should always be remembered, would be retired. And the trophy, as voted on by the players as the most valuable, would now be named the Ted Lindsay Award, in honor of Ted and his fight to bring the Players Association to the NHL. Keep in mind, it's always, not to take anything away from Ted, but he didn't accomplish that, right? Like, he fought the good fight, and it cost him his initial tenure in Detroit. They traded him to Chicago. Everybody that was involved in that took a massive hit. Gus Mortson, Doug Harvey, Ted Lindsay, they all took a hit. But Ted Lindsay didn't win the Players Union. That was largely Brian Kilray and Alan Eagleson who brought the Players Union to the NHL. Ted's fight was probably the straw that broke the back ultimately, but it was still 9 years before there was a union. But they honored Ted, and rightfully so, and I've got no problem with that. But they changed the name of a trophy from a Prime Minister of Canada. I'm not talking about eliminating every Hart Trophy winner. If the Hart Trophy was sitting here in my kitchen right now, and I wanted to see Rocket Richard's name on it, having won it in 1947, I would not be able to find his name. Because his name is on the original trophy. And when the name was changed, to continue to honor the family, but to change it from Dr. David Hart, a dentist or whatever he was, to honor his son in 1960, Cecil Hart, thereby keeping it the Hart Memorial Trophy. All names previously on were taken off. There was a new trophy commissioned. So you can't see the Rockets' name on. You can't see Gordie Howe's first wins on there. You can't see anybody that won it prior to 1959-60 on the current Hart Trophy. So what's the big deal? What is the big deal? What is the angst? What is the fear? This would be an easy thing to do. And yeah, you could talk about maybe doing some of the other ones. There's some that are possibly archaic, but I wouldn't change the Smythe. I mean, Conn Smythe to me was instrumental in the development of the early days of the NHL, not the very least of his incredible efforts for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This after he was slammed and shunted by the New York Rangers. So if anything, I don't have a problem with that. The Vezina, how could you change that? I mean, George Vezina, when he was honored in 1927, a year after his passing, I mean, he was really the first great goaltender. You can make the case Percy Lesueur, There's maybe one or two others in that time period, but George really was the first real great goaltender, followed very quickly by guys like Alex Connell and Clint Benedict and their accomplishments, whether it be the mask or the shutout streak. But who has if you know your hockey history, I don't have a problem with George Vezina. I don't have a problem with James Norris. I mean, we look at the Norris family, and yeah, they're honored elsewhere in hockey, and there was a division named after them and different things. But there's never been anything for Gordie Howe. Nothing. He's dead 4 years today. 4 years today he passed. 32 years. No man in history in sports has his combination of longevity, durability, and excellence. And you still haven't done a damn thing. It's an absolute joke and a travesty, NHL. Figure it out, okay? Figure it out. It's not that difficult. If you don't want to do the Hart Trophy, figure something else out. I mean, let's be honest. Should there not be a Bobby Orr Trophy to go along with the James Norris Trophy and split up the D? Should there not at this point now be something for the most points so that controversy can go away? You know, which raises its head every year, whether it's the Erik Karlsson fans or now the John Carlson fans. Perhaps it should be Roman Josi. I mean, some of these arguments are so archaic and so redundant, yet we have them year after year. And here we are now, 4 years already in the passing of Gordie. So that's all I got to say. That's all I got to say today. I know it's the anniversary of some overtime wins and Stanley Cup victories. And, you know, today's the actual date that the WHA started. I mean, those of us maybe got a chance to see, if you got to see a little bit of WHA, which lasted for 7 years, the league actually started today, June 10th, 1971. A little bit of hockey history for you there. And there's a bunch of other things on June 10th. Sam Pollock, the late, great general manager, but the greatest general manager in the history of sports, on this day in 1971, the same day the WHA started, at the NHL draft in Montreal, called time, as they had the first pick, which was procured the year before from the Oakland Seals, the California Seals, later the California Golden Seals. And he called time before selecting Guy Lafleur on this date in 1971, the same day the WHA started. And some significant hockey history there. Nonetheless, this is a toast in memory of Gordie Howe, and also just a shout out to everybody who contacted me about what I wrote about Paul O'Kane. He passed on Saturday. What an incredible impact. I wrote a little blurb on him, and the feedback was phenomenal. I thank you all for that. And also never really formally got a chance to thank everybody for all the birthday wishes as well. I tried to get back. My computer kept freezing as I tried to go back. There were so many. Lost in all of that was my one of my closest all-time friends, Gordie Paul, and him and I share a birthday. This is for you as well, Gordo. And I know as soon as they lift the curtain on this pandemic, buddy, I'm heading to Perth, and I've got a great niece to visit, Addison. I cannot wait, and to see Jamie and Mallory and Haley Bopp, and of course the lovely Nicola. Cannot wait to see everybody. So God bless everybody. Stay safe out there. I think this is starting. We're starting to get some traction with patios opening up. Isn't that fantastic? Find your favorite patio. Go out on Friday and drill a dozen back. All right? I'll start it off right now. G'day.